hierarchy does still exist on this planet, but the basis has been completely changed by simply changing the spelling from hierarchy to hierarchy. It is not based on higher and divine anymore. Thus, all the craziness and madness. Hierarchy has always existed in this omniverse and always will. And this planet would have to come back to it to just how much force has to be unleashed to restore the order remains to be seen. It's just so magnificent to be in a legitimate hierarchy, to have someone so far above me, and that I can actually tell is so far above me. It's the hugest contrast to the way I grew up. Growing up, it was always, whoever my mother was banging was at the very top of the hierarchy, and anything with a penis was very close to that level, but not quite. My mother and her female friends were beneath that. And then it was my half-sister, my close-in-age sister, then me at the very bottom. There were huge gaps in between each level. So if, someone at the top level wanted to, let's say, beat up my mom, that's just how, that was just the natural order of the universe and not traumatic at all. If one of her boyfriends wanted to toss my sister out the window, that's just something somebody did, and about as significant as taking out the trash. If my sister got in an accident, and like a huge chunk of her skin, like from her forehead, was like falling over her eye, that was just not considered worth getting out of a tarot reading for. And my sister was at a level that I could only dream of being in the hierarchy. So, I guess I was in a situation where, if someone way at the top of the hierarchy acted like they didn't hear me, I had every reason to suspect that they genuinely couldn't hear me. And if I tried to lower myself to the level of communication that I saw at the top of the hierarchy, that was more of a pragmatic move than me feeling any emotion of one kind or another. Like a lot of people are surprised these days when about all these viral videos about university students communicating primarily through grunts and gestures and loud volumes. But to me, that's what the top of the hierarchy has always been. And the whole reason why I just can't deal. If anyone did hear me or was traumatized by insubordination rather than anything else, because no matter what the people at the top did, and they really did some stuff, that was never any big deal. But somehow, someone at the bottom, the very, very dregs of just barely clinging on to the bottom of the hierarchy, somehow that person had such a big effect. I'm very skeptical about that. It wasn't traumatizing enough to have a half-hour conversation about about strategizing how to get out of there, which was the only thing I really wanted to talk about. That's the only reason why communication overtures were made. It wasn't traumatizing just to call someone and have me go work for them. Everyone else I went to school with is a multi-billionaire. But my reputation was just too tarnished, I guess, to do that. So, I think that when people are so firm in their pretend hierarchies, the Force might really go against them. This line, just how much Force has to be unleashed to restore the order, remains to be seen. So the Force is naturally very much against false hierarchies. Yeah, I just wouldn't be surprised if that was more the issue than anything that one person could do from their own crap situation. Yeah, and it's just such an absolute relief to be in a real, genuine hierarchy. I cannot even believe it. It's not possible to be too subtle or too nuanced or too sophisticated, to communicate with a higher being. One really does have to raise one's level, and to communicate with people at the top of the made-up hierarchies, one really does have to lower one's level, debase oneself in order to, communicate, and it's just not worth it. The contrast is just so amazing. I love the extreme sensitivity and perception of a higher being is just so miraculous. One thing that really bothers me is how much pressure there is in society to pretend to love your kids. I think that it should be no big deal for anyone to say that, that having this kid interfered with my best years of attention whoring, and now I'm jealous that they might start getting more attention than me. I have a lot of resentment about that. If just being honest was no big deal, then people could just take responsibility for their feelings and rein it in, instead of, I think when there's all this pressure to pretend to be something that you're not and pretend to feel things that you will never feel, then that's when the total insanity and psychosis sets in. Yeah, I don't know why it's such a crime to be honest in the Muggle hierarchy. I guess the whole thing is based on dishonesty is why. But I think if more honesty was introduced to it, then people could kind of take responsibility for their shadow side. people who admit to themselves that they're bad people are usually the best people. Like, it always happens like that. Like, anyone who thinks that they're a good person, all that means is that they're not self-aware regarding their shadow side and all of their tendencies, and that is going to come out in weird ways. And I think the more pressure there is to be good or meet a certain moral criteria, the harder it is. And there's just way too much of it around parenting.